Welcome to the show, guys. Super excited today to talk to you about 5 running backs to avoid at all costs. Now, I want to tell you guys, these guys are big running backs, and you want to avoid them at all costs. Now, today, guys, this show is brought to you by Manscaped.com. I only promote people and products and brands that I believe in and that I would actually use. So now we are brought to you guys, big announcement by Manscaped Studios, teamed up with Manscaped. Super excited to endorse a product that I personally use and that I personally believe in. Now, there's a huge selection of guys I could have went with, other products, other brands. And again, I'm very fortunate that Manscaped accepted the deal and are going to be working with me. And I want to provide you guys with the best possible value, I possibly can. Again, super excited, guys. And again, in my hand here, I've got the Lawnmower 4.0. I use this, guys. I use it. I won't tell you how frequently I use it, but as soon as the bush starts growing out, I'm in there hacking away at it with the Lawnmower 4.0, guys. Now, the cool thing about this, skin-safe technology, rechargeable wireless charging, guys. You got the LED spotlight. It's waterproof. It's got a travel lock, and it works phenomenal, okay, guys? Now, I just went in, guys. I got myself a performance package as well. Go on the website, check out all the perks there. You get the nice underwear. My balls feel really good. You'll love it, guys. Again, the promo code you want to use is SHOWERLINE20. Save yourself 20%. You'll be very happy with the product. You'll be very happy with the service. Delivery is amazing. Manscaped.com, SHOWERLINE20. We've teamed up with them now, and I'm super excited to have teamed up with Manscaped.com, a product that I use and I believe in. All right, guys? Go do that. And secondly, guys, get the 16-round draft, which will help you guys crush your leagues. Use code for that one. You're not going to use SHOWERLINE20. SHOWERLINE20, guys, is for the Manscaped products. Anytime you guys want to get that grooming product, try the shampoo conditioner, SHOWERLINE20. But for the 16-round draft solution, use code TUBE20, save yourself 20%, and crush your leagues while you're at it. All right, guys? While you're grooming, you can watch, the 16-round draft solution, jump in the video training, and crush your leagues. All right, guys? So let's dive into this show here, guys. I'm super excited to talk about 5 running backs. Well, actually, I'm not too excited about it, but 5 running backs that I'm going to be avoiding at all costs this year. I want to make you guys aware of this because these guys are big name running backs. This isn't just like, hey guys, let's avoid James White. This is like, let's avoid some big names. So let's dive into it, talk about their ADP, talk about why I'm personally avoiding them at all costs. The first guy I want to talk about here is James Conner. Now, James Conner is in a pretty decent situation to succeed. He's got Darrell Williams there, Benjamin. Those guys, I'd say years to wow me, guys. And guess what? I'm not wowed. So let's talk about James Conner first and foremost. Now, you guys know I only talk PPR. He's currently sitting 15th on the consensus rankings amongst running backs. Absolutely ludicrous. Now, James Conner had himself a great campaign last year. When you look at how well he performed, a lot of that was predicated on his rushing touchdowns, which is 15, which was like a pinnacle year for the guy. He had himself a great year, and I want to give him credit where credit is due. But this is a guy that for years, he's kind of struggled with injuries. He hasn't really hasn't finished the season for that matter. He played on the Steelers, had himself a good campaign in 2018. But since then, I haven't seen anything that other than last year with this high amount of touchdowns that has wowed me, okay? Now, he is going into his 6th season, but I have my question marks. And the biggest question mark to me is, will the touchdowns go down? And I'm going to say yes. The touchdowns will go down, 15 touchdowns. Very hard to duplicate for a guy who's never done it in his career and only did it once. Now, Kyler Murray, you got to imagine he runs the ball quite a bit. They've got DeAndre Hopkins, who's out for a bit. And when he comes back, I imagine they're going to be throwing a lot more. They got Rondale Moore, Marquise Brown. They've added Zach Ertz, who I think is going to be a red zone target as well. To me, I just don't think he's going to duplicate those numbers. And for that reason alone, and again, I just think it's an anomaly year for him. I'm not sold on James Conner being this sensational running back, and you're going to have to pay a relatively high price to get him. And that's the issue I'm having. You're looking at a 2nd-round pick. I think he's suspect. I think he's questionable. And to me, again, 1 year, maybe 2 if you want to factor in that big year where he was a product of the offense of the Steelers back in 2018. That's not enough for me to say, okay, James Conner is worthy of a roster spot for me, especially in the 2nd round. I like guys that are a little more consistent, a little more upside, a little more volume, when I'm looking at them as well. 202 attempts. That's something you really have to factor in, okay? Especially when you're investing in a guy relatively early, second, even third round, where I can get myself a Zeke Elliott, even though he's been on a decline over the past couple of years, still had 237 attempts last year, and he was dealing with a partially torn ACL, or PCL, that is. So when I'm looking at, James Conner, I'm seeing a guy who was 17th on attempts last year, peaked at touchdowns, and you're overpaying for a guy that, again, kind of years to wow us were not wow. So I'm a little concerned about James Conner this year, and I will be avoiding him at all costs, as should you. Because again, I just don't think the lightning is going to strike twice for James Conner. And again, the injuries in the past kind of concern me. Not a guy I'm giddy about, not a guy I'm going to be paying a high price to get. That is James Conner, all right? So let's go on to the second running back you must avoid at all costs. And I want to make this interactive, guys. I implore you, in the comments below, drop a comment. Let me know, do you agree with this list? Do you not agree with this list? Is there anyone else you'd avoid? Because and again, there's a ton of running backs I would avoid. Like, I would personally avoid a Rex Burkhead. I'm avoiding a Clyde Edwards-Helaire. There's a bunch of them. But I wanted to go for 5 big name, 5 high ADP running backs that I want to avoid. I want you guys to let me know who you guys, do you agree, or who you guys think you'd avoid as well from these big name guys, all right? Second guy here is Antonio Gibson. Now, I'm going to be releasing it soon. The time it's recording, I haven't released it, but I will be. I just had top YouTuber Ed Oliver on. He's a Washington Commanders ambassador and influencer. And I got all these beat writers coming on. I just had the Titans beat writer. He works directly for the Tennessee Titans, talking Derrick Henry. The Impact series is linked below. Watch it, guys. There's a breakdown of every single team and player broken down for you by the team ambassadors. It's pretty phenomenal, guys. So the Impact series is linked below. Dive into that. Okay, because there's a lot of value there for you guys, okay? So we talked about this guy. The guy I'm talking about is Antonio Gibson. Antonio Gibson had himself a good year last year. Now, when you're looking from an attempt standpoint, it was pretty good at 258, and that's really, really appealing. But the guy does have some fumbling issues, all right? That's something you have to be aware of. I want to make you aware of this. Now, he did finish 10th last year, 1,037 yards, and only 4 touchdowns. That's a big concern as well. Yes, you're getting the volume, but you're lacking the touchdowns. Okay, that's a big concern. I want to make you guys also aware that Brian Robinson Jr. was drafted out of Alabama, who actually, on the contrary, was hand-selected because he didn't have any fumbling issues. This is something, guys, I need to make you aware of, because it's something that me and Ed Oliver were talking about on the Washington Commanders show, is that if Gibson ends up fumbling, we've got some issues here that we've got to address, and that is that he could be benched if you are an owner. And then what you're saying, well, yeah, we also have J.D. McKissick as well. From what I understand, McKissick was, a bit of a goal line vulture a little bit sometimes. He was pesky around that goal line. I can't remember what week it was. Don't quote me. It was like week 2, 3, or 4. Either way, McKissick came in, got a receiving touchdown near the goal line. Gibson owners were losing it. And I said McKissick would be a thorn. Then he was supposed to be traded away to the Buffalo Bills. Then he came back, and there was all this drama. They're obviously going to use him in the passing game. They may use him near the goal line in some pitch situations where they pitch the ball out to him. He runs around, gets to the goal line, hoards that away from Gibson. But the main concern here is that they drafted a third-round pick here in Brian Robinson, not to bench him, right? To use him in case maybe Gibson fumbles, or they mean, he's a pretty big boy, Brian Robinson. I would definitely do some research on him as well. He's not a small running back. He can be that workhorse guy, and they could use him. Again, I really think that Gibson's on a short leash, and the problem with Gibson is that you still have to pay a relatively expensive price. You're talking late second round, I would say early third, maybe as late third as possible in a 12-person league. You're paying a pretty hefty price, and that's the issue I have with these people saying 0 RB. They're saying wait on running back, get yourself a Gibson later, round 2, round 3, round 4 even, if he falls. And I'm all about not doing that mindset. I'm all about going top heavy, getting those workhorses instead of getting these guys that are subject to possibly not seeing the volume that you think. So Gibson's a guy I don't trust. The fumbling issues, the third round acquisition of Brian Robinson Jr., and I have a trouble with the Commanders team in general, not a team I personally trust at all, okay? So Gibson's the second running back I'm avoiding at all costs, all right? Third running back here, you're like, well, Joe, this is Captain Obvious. I've heard this before. I gave you two names there that I was avoiding last year anyway, but I just didn't highlight it as much as I highlight this particular guy every single year. But the guy I'm talking about here, third guy I'm avoiding at all costs, is the very expensive, the very overrated, the guy that hasn't finished the season in his entire life, Dalvin Cook. Now, Dalvin Cook, again, very, very expensive this year. Fourth in PPR. I always talk 1 point PPR. I don't separate half point PPR to standard. I just get the best possible players at all times. That's how I formulate my strategy. I don't say, oh, that guy's a PPR guy, I'm only going to draft. No, I get the best player based on volume, opportunity, talent, depth chart, and all the variables I include, including the cutting system and all that. Consistency, upside, durability, depth, and youth. And I'm telling you guys, Dalvin Cook has not finished a season. And he will miss games. And I keep talking about this. I talk about this every single year. He busted last year significantly based on his ADP. This was a guy coming off top 4, top 5 pick. Where Dalvin Cook is not, where he finished is not where he was drafted at all. The guy busted, finished 16th amongst running backs last year, significant bust. People are not talking about this. They're just, the consensus have this bias towards the guy, and it's always the same conversation. I'm going to draft Dalvin Cook, they say, in the first round, and what ends up happening is he busts, and they always say, well, I got to get Madison later. I've been telling this and preaching this for years. Fade Dalvin Cook, right? Because he's going to miss games. There's going to be a 3 to 4 window game, absence. And then that's basically like fantasy football roulette. Where is he going to miss those games? And if you remember 2 or 3 years ago, he missed them during your fantasy football championships. That's not a good time to be missing, your fantasy games, or especially for a guy you're investing a first round pick in. So Dalvin Cook, some people say I don't dive into stats. I'm diving into stats. I'm telling you, statistically, the guy has not finished a season. He finished 16th amongst running backs, and now you're telling me that he is a top 4 running back in fantasy on the consensus rankings based on a huge, massive bust last year. He had 1,159 yards, 6 touchdowns, 249 attempts, but he only played the 13 games and has not finished a season. To me, it's too expensive. To me, it's too risky. A guy that's already been paid, incentivized, and on the downward spiral of his career. I don't see a resurgence. I see them more involved in the passing game with Jefferson and Thielen. They're going to be throwing the ball a lot more this year. They've kind of solidified their wide receivers there. Again, I'm not investing it. It's not going to be a run-first team. I think it's going to be more of a throw-first team. Dalvin Cook will be used. He'll have some good games. He'll have some big games, but not a guy I'm investing a first-round pick in. Dalvin Cook, avoid him at all costs. All right, guys? I've got 2 more here for you. Man, I've got so many players to avoid. And again, make sure you guys get that 16-round draft solution. Use code TUBE20. That's TUB20. Save yourself 20%. I've linked it below. Or just, go to 16 rounds. Just Google 16-round draft solution or thefantasyfootballcouch.com, where I omit all these players. And you're getting on a silver platter all the optimal players to draft. And I walk through mock drafts. And the July mock is out right now. If you guys are 16-round owners, I just released it yesterday. You guys could go dive in and get the up-to-date mock drafts, okay? And I update the notes up until the season starts, all right, guys? 16-round draft solution, all right? So let's talk about the 4th running back here. Now, we've talked about James Conner. We've talked about Antonio Gibson. We've talked about Dalvin Cook. The third guy here I'm going to avoid at all costs, and I don't get it. I don't see why he's so expensive. Now, the guy I'm talking about is DeAndre Swift. Again, I just don't see the hype. I don't see the excitement. Guys, we're talking Detroit Lions here. They're going to finish last of their division, potentially, maybe third. DeAndre Swift's got Jamal Williams there. Now, I don't think Jamal Williams is a massive threat, but he is, guys, on the Detroit Lions, okay? The Detroit Lions do not excite me. The volume that Swift had last year, now he played 13 games. A volume of 151 rushing attempts, guys. Not exciting to say the least. He had 78 targets for 62 receptions, 452 receiving yards, and 2 receiving touchdowns, a combined 7 touchdowns. Again, you could say, well, Joe, he was banged up last year. He got hurt a little bit, missed a few games, didn't play the full season. And that is a concern. Injury is going to be a concern. Now, I just had Dosa Dion on, the ambassador for the Detroit Lions. Go check out that episode, Impact Series below. He has some concerns here, of course, with the injuries as well. with DeAndre Swift. I don't think the volume's there. I think the talent is there, but he's going into his third season. He's peaked at 151 targets a season, or 151 attempts, that is, 114 attempts the first season. He's just not getting the volume, guys. I just don't see it. Now, there is some ceiling there. There's an opportunity for him to be the workhorse guy, but I just don't see him being the workhorse guy. And that's the issue I have with him. I don't see him and view him as a workhorse guy on a suspect offense, on a suspect team. And the biggest issue I have with him is his price. He's sitting number 8th on the consensus rankings, just behind Joe Mixon, who is slated as a workhorse. And, he's sitting, and again, this is one of those debates I'm going to have, and I'm going to laugh when the season comes at the end of the season or midseason, is that he's sitting behind guys or sitting ahead on top of the rankings, ahead of guys like David Montgomery, Zeke Elliott, and Breece Hall, to name a few guys there. Even ahead of Javonte Williams, who I think will be in a committee with Melvin Gordon, but I think the ceiling's a little higher for Javonte. Now, again, this is one of those situations where I'm going to look back and say, man, idiot consensus, DeAndre Swift, so high, so expensive. Dalvin Cook, so high, so expensive. It's absolutely ludicrous. I'm avoiding him at all costs. DeAndre Swift, avoid. All right, guys? And now I'm torn here. There's 2 guys I'm avoiding at all costs. I don't know if I should give you both. You guys should get the 16-round draft solution. But the 5th guy here, again, I'll do more videos, so make sure you guys are subscribed. I know a lot of people are watching the videos and not subscribed, so I'll leave. There's 2 of them just screaming my name saying, don't draft me, avoid me at all costs. I don't want to say both, but I'm going to say one of them. Oh, man, I'm torn on this one. Which one should I tell you? I'll give it to you. Nick Chubb. I'm going to tell you that one. There's another guy that's screaming my name saying avoid him. I'm not going to, because I said 5. I'm going to keep it to 5. But the guy I'm talking about is Nick Chubb as the 5th one. But the other guy's like, don't draft me. There's a couple guys that are in the top 10. There's a bunch of guys in the top 10 I'm not drafting. But the guys, again, number 5 here is Nick Chubb. Oh, man, that's why I created 16 rounds, because I want you guys to avoid these pitfalls. And I remember years ago, this is true story here. I avoided story time today because I just dove right into it. People were telling me and yelling at me because I had Derrick Henry, guys, believe it or not, ahead of Damian Williams. Crazy me. And that was the year that Derrick Henry absolutely went off and everyone jumped on the train. Crazy me to put Derrick Henry ahead of Damian Williams. Everyone had Damian Williams ahead of him. And that's the type of stuff I'm seeing here right now. Nick Chubb, again, I think his ADP is a little safer in PPR at 13. But this is a guy that, again, busted last year, let you guys down last year. He was coming off top 8 pick. He was coming off at the end of first round. Busted, finished 13th, about 5 or 6 or 7 spots below his average draft position. And the cool thing was here, not even the cool thing, but the sad thing, I should say, was, Hunt was hurt pretty much the season, right? He was banged up all last season. So you're looking at a guy like Nick Chubb, who had the opportunity to really shine, ended up playing 14 games, even with Kareem Hunt, not a full go. Kareem Hunt only played 8 games last season, just to put that in perspective for you guys. And Nick Chubb still didn't thrive. So now you've got a new quarterback there. You've got, Watson not probably playing this season. You got Jacoby Brissett. Amari Cooper comes in. I think they'll be throwing a lot more to him. I do like him as a solid, wide receiver there, because get a lot of volume. But I just don't see Nick Chubb finishing, it could finish again. 13, I think that's a safe. It is kind of copy and paste. But just a guy that I won't be investing that, second round pick, third round pick, right? I think he's more of like a late second round kind of pick. I'm just not investing it in him. I'm just not going to do it. Because, again, I'm looking at it, and I see Saquon Barkley in the second round. I'm seeing the ceiling a little more for him. I probably lean that way. But Nick Chubb could fall to the third round as an RB3 maybe, but a guy I'm personally avoiding. Because, again, Kareem Hunt is going to just outdo him like he always does in PPR. So I'm going to be fading him completely. All right, guys? So there you have it. 5 big names I'm going to be avoiding for the reasons I stated. James Conner peaked last year with touchdowns. Antonio Gibson fumbling issues with Brian Robinson Jr. drafted in the third round, breathing down his neck, and they've got McKissick there, going to be in the receiving game. I talked about DeAndre Swift. I don't see the volume being there. Suspect offense, very high and expensive. Dalvin Cook, who's guaranteed to miss games. He's done it every single year. I don't see history letting me down again. And, of course, we got, who do we say here? Nick Chubb as well. Again, Kareem Hunt, if he plays a full season, look for a 1-2 punch. Different offense there with Jacoby Brissett. We're going to be seeing a little bit more passing with Amari Cooper. It's going to be interesting to see how that offense gels, but I personally don't trust Nick Chubb, and again, a little too expensive for me. there you guys have it, guys. Again, go get your lawnmower 4.0 amazing trimmer, manscaped.com. Use code SHOWERLINE20. Let me know in the comments below, guys, who you think you're avoiding. Let me know who you're actually avoiding. And, of course, guys, get the 60-round draft, so you should use code TUBE20. All right, guys, I appreciate you. Subscribe, thumbs up. Really helps the channel. And we'll talk soon, guys. I'm out.